Confidence is not loud. It doesn't walk into a room announcing itself with forced handshakes, overcompensating smiles, or noise meant to prove existence. True confidence is stillness. It's the quiet power of a man who sits alone and doesn't need to explain himself. The kind of presence that doesn't seek validation, doesn't chase approval, and never begs to be understood. It is the calm in the center of chaos, the unshaken core that watches everything unfold and doesn't flinch. This isn't aloofness, it's control. It's what Machiavelli would call the silent mask of dominance, the calculated refusal to be moved. That trait? It has a name. Nonchalance, the posture of power without performance. When the world screams for reaction, you remain unmoved. That is nonchalance. It separates kings from clowns. While desperate men over-explain, overreach, and overreact, the nonchalant man remains sovereign. Every reaction they give is a currency spent. Every flash of emotion is a withdrawal from their power. But the man who hoards his responses controls the room. He doesn't chase. He doesn't justify. He doesn't scramble to fix perception. He understands the world works harder for what it cannot easily reach. He allows silence to speak for him. He lets curiosity ferment around his calm. He doesn't push, he pulls. Nonchalance isn't laziness, it's precision. A cold and quiet blade. A signal that says, I am untouchable. Nothing you do will shake me from my center. This frustrates rivals. It seduces allies. It makes enemies flail wildly, swinging into empty air, trying to provoke a man who simply doesn't respond. That's when the panic sets in. Because what can you do to someone who gives you nothing? No tells, no emotion, no cues, only quiet, focused observation. A man who watches, calculates, and waits. Nonchalance is more than calm. It is strategic detachment. It is the ability to step back from the chaos, rise above the emotional noise, and see the game board from elevation. Most people can't do this. They are hostages of impulse. They lash out at the first insult, jump at the first reward, tremble at the first threat. Their sense of control is reactive, fragile, desperate for external confirmation. But the nonchalant man, he denies them the game they know how to play. His silence is disruption. His indifference is pressure. Because the man who shows nothing becomes unreadable. And in that void of visible intention, others begin to fill the blanks with fear. Their minds spiral. Is he calm because he knows something I don't? Is he planning something I can't see? Their imagination turns him into something greater than reality. This is the trap. Humans hate the unknown. We're wired to seek patterns, to predict outcomes. So when someone refuses to fit a pattern, we overthink. We project strength. We invent meaning. We become intimidated not by what they do, but by what they might do. And that might is often far more powerful than any action. Machiavelli taught that a ruler must always appear composed, whether ruling over paradise or ruins, because appearance becomes belief, and belief becomes behavior. If people believe you cannot be moved, they will act as if you are immovable. Perception, in power, is often more valuable than truth. This is why the most powerful figures in history, negotiators, generals, leaders, mastered nonchalance. Not because they were emotionless, but because they knew how to wear composure like armor. They understood that pressure is a weapon, and the one who breaks last wins. Not because he's stronger, but because he lets others collapse under their own panic. Nonchalance becomes protection from manipulation. In a world addicted to propaganda, insults, and bait, most people react without thinking. They leap into traps, expose themselves with emotion, and reveal their weaknesses through their need to respond. But the nonchalant man remains immune. He sees the bait and doesn't bite. He watches the chaos and does not blink. His silence forces others to burn energy, to grow desperate, to show their hand first. This isn't passivity. It's delayed dominance. It's the art of choosing your moment so precisely that when you strike, nothing can stop you. In the game of power, impatience is weakness. Stillness beats impulse. But nonchalance? That is patience evolved. It is psychological warfare. It flips the dynamic. Instead of you working for approval, others work for yours. Instead of you chasing position, you let others fight for a place near you. And once they begin chasing your attention, your respect, your validation, you own the tempo, you set the schedule, you control when the conversation happens, how it happens, and whether it happens at all. Nonchalance turns your very presence into a chess move. People stop seeing you as someone to convince and start seeing you as someone to impress. Your absence becomes louder than their noise. Your silence becomes louder than their words. To grasp the full extent of its power, look through the eyes of those observing it. Humans crave feedback. When they express anger, they expect fear. When they flex pride, they want admiration. When they poke, they want reaction. But the nonchalant man denies them all of it. His lack of response becomes psychological torture. It starves them of confirmation. They don't know if they've succeeded or failed, and that ambiguity becomes unbearable. They start to overthink. They make mistakes. Their confidence fractures. The more they try to provoke, the more your stillness mocks them. The more they flail, the more composed you appear. And soon, even enemies begin to respect you. Why? Because the human brain links composure with competence. If you don't panic, you must be prepared. If you don't explain yourself, you must be confident in your truth. Whether or not that's accurate doesn't matter, because power is never about what's real. It's about what's believed. Manipulators lose their grip when you don't play your part. Their strategy unravels. They need you to get angry. They need you to defend. They need your reaction to complete their control. But when you sit, unbothered, emotionless, detached, they are left standing on stage, speaking into silence. Their performance fails. They turn frantic. Their act collapses under the weight of your stillness. And all the while you remain unshaken. Calmness becomes your castle. Silence becomes your sword. Mystery forms around you like a cloak, because when people cannot read you, they start projecting onto you. They begin assigning you traits, strengths, and strategies you may not even possess. But it doesn't matter. They believe you are sharp. They believe you are dangerous. They believe you are calculating something they can't see. And that belief reshapes how they behave around you. Suddenly they become cautious. They choose their words carefully. They lower their tone. They second-guess themselves in your presence. Because they are no longer reacting to you, they're reacting to what they imagine you to be. That's the real art of nonchalance. You don't impose power. You invite others to hand it to you out of uncertainty. And the less they understand, the more control you gain. Pressure becomes your leverage. In high-stakes conversations, arguments, confrontations, everyone expects escalation. They expect emotion. But when you stay calm, you defy that expectation. You hold your ground, and in doing so, you reverse the psychological weight. Now they're unsure. Now they wonder, what does he know that I don't? Your composure becomes a mirror, and in it, they see their own instability reflected back. The hierarchy shifts without a word. In every group, the one who controls emotion ends up controlling direction. And if you can stay composed when others crack, you automatically rise. Not because you said more, but because you reacted less. That's why nonchalance has always been prized by emperors, diplomats, and quiet rulers. They understood the gravity of presence. the silent force of the man who doesn't flinch. Your reputation evolves each time you hold back. Every moment you don't react. Every time you resist the urge to explain yourself. It sends a message. This man cannot be rattled. This man cannot be read. This man cannot be provoked. That message spreads. It begins to precede you. People begin treating you differently without realizing why. You're not just a participant anymore. You're the axis they start revolving around. But there's another transformation happening. Internally. Nonchalance doesn't just change how others see you. It changes how you see yourself. When you train your mind to resist the chaos, you stop living on the world's leash. You no longer dance to every external trigger. You move on your own rhythm. And in a culture built on urgency and emotional addiction, there's nothing more dangerous than a man who simply refuses to be rushed. This isn't performance. It's identity. It's not an act. It's armor. True nonchalance is not about pretending you don't care. It's about caring selectively. You're not cold. You're intentional. You don't respond to everything because not everything deserves a response. You are not indifferent to life. You are immune to nonsense. You understand that attention is currency, and you do not spend it cheaply. That level of control must be trained, forged through discomfort. The first lesson begins with your relationship to urgency. Most men are slaves to the clock, jumping at every notification, every ping, every demand. The nonchalant man ignores the beat of the world. He sets his own tempo. He decides what matters and when. And that simple shift, choosing when to respond, reshapes your reality. Start small. Pause before you answer. Delay your reactions. Let others sit in silence and feel the weight of your patience. As you do, they start to slow down. Without even realizing it, they adjust to your pace. You begin to train the environment. Then comes the discipline of the unmoved face, the micro-expressions, the tiny giveaways most people don't realize they reveal. A twitch of the mouth, a raised brow, a clenched jaw. These are weaknesses, and they're readable. Learn to master your face under pressure. Let no emotion leak. Sit across from someone who tries to insult you, provoke you, test you, and show nothing. Your breath may quicken, your heart may pound, but your face remains calm. Your posture stays still. This is emotional opacity. You give the world no clue whether it has reached you. And in that void, people panic. They overstep. They expose themselves. They start to guess. And that guessing gives you power. Stillness does not mean lifelessness. The nonchalant man is not frozen. He is composed. He moves deliberately, speaks slowly, acts with rhythm. There is a pace to him that says, "I have more time than you." And that perception forces others to wait, to follow, to adjust. You don't interrupt silence. You let it stretch until it becomes tension. You let others break it, and in doing so, you gain control without saying a word. To maintain this, limit your availability. The man who is always visible, always responsive, always present, loses value. The more people see you, the less they feel your weight. Strategic absence sharpens presence. You don't have to explain your departure. You don't need an excuse to leave early, to send a shorter message, to say no without reason. You create the impression that your time is expensive. Even when you spend it alone, in solitude, you frame it as reserved. Not idle, reserved. Loss is another testing ground. Anyone can look composed when things go well. The test is how you carry yourself when things don't, when something you wanted slips away, when someone rejects you, when a deal falls apart. The average man will sulk, lash out, wallow in emotional drama. But you absorb it without leakage. You don't need to perform your disappointment. You accept it with the same calm as victory. Internally, you may be planning your next move, but externally, your composure remains untouchable. That confuses people. It unsettles them. They expect to see you stumble. When you don't, it forces them to reconsider their entire understanding of you. It rewrites the hierarchy again, because a man who carries loss with grace carries power. Your speech also reflects your control. Speak with intention. Eliminate the noise. The more you talk, the more you give away. The more you explain, the more they decode. Let your words be few, but clear. Let your tone be steady. Your silence will say more than your monologue ever could. People will lean in, trying to fill in the blanks. And in that act of guessing, they elevate you. Understand this clearly. Nonchalance is not detachment from everything. It is clarity about what's worth your energy. It's not being unbothered. It's being highly bothered by the right things and immune to the rest. The difference is precision. The average man scatters his focus. The nonchalant man concentrates it. When you reach this level of presence, you start to see the shift. People hesitate before making requests. They lower their volume when speaking to you. They prepare more carefully before engaging with you, not because you demand it, but because your energy commands it. They're not reacting to noise. They're reacting to discipline, to calm, to power that doesn't posture. And it all began with your silence. The moment you realize that your presence changes the tempo of a room without you having to say a word, you begin to understand the true depth of nonchalance. It's not a trick. It's not a tactic. It's a transformation. The frantic energy that once infected your body, the need to prove, to rush, to explain, has been replaced with something colder, more strategic, more sovereign. You don't react to chaos. You consume it. You don't try to win arguments. You turn your composure into the reason the argument never begins. In this state, the world bends toward you, not out of fear, but out of confusion. They don't know what to expect. You're not predictable. You're not performative. You're unreadable. That's where your advantage crystallizes. You no longer play the game everyone else is trapped in. They operate on emotional reflexes. You operate on timing. They reveal their intentions with every word. You reveal nothing, and yet you gain everything. But weaponizing nonchalance doesn't just influence individuals. It shapes perception across entire rooms, organizations, even ideologies. When others can't provoke you, can't push you, can't make you explain or apologize or react, they start recalibrating how they engage with you. They pull back. They second-guess. And in that pause, in that hesitation, you gain more than control. You gain space, because space is where power lives. Those who rush into every conflict, who engage in every debate, who leap into every emotional transaction, leave no space between themselves and the world. They are consumed by it. But you've built distance. Distance gives you perspective, and perspective gives you choice. That's what nonchalance really is. The power to choose. Not just when to move, but if you move. Not just what to say, but whether it even deserves a response. And this discipline cannot be faked. The world knows the difference between a man who's calm because he's afraid to speak, and a man who's calm because he doesn't need to. The first is hiding. The second is holding power. You are not silent because you're timid. You're silent because you know your voice is too valuable to be wasted. But make no mistake, nonchalance comes with danger, especially when misunderstood. There is a fine line between composure and paralysis. If you mistake stillness for wisdom in every moment, you may miss the moments that require fire. There are times when you must act decisively, speak boldly, move quickly. A soldier who never draws his sword dies with it rusting in its sheath. There are moments when the storm inside must be unleashed, not as an emotional outburst, but as a calculated strike. To hesitate, then, is not strength, it is failure. Nonchalance must also never drift into indifference. To become too detached is to become blind. Blind to shifts in tone, blind to the emotional current around you, blind to opportunities and threats. The strategist who observes everything but feels nothing becomes obsolete. You must remain present, aware, sharp. Stillness should be the surface of your being, not the depth. Beneath the calm must be movement, tension, intention, readiness. And be warned, the longer you maintain emotional distance, the more enemies you may inspire without knowing. Not because of what you've done, but because of what they feel unseen by. People can forgive arrogance, they can tolerate aggression, but they rarely forget the feeling of being invisible. When someone senses that you are completely unmoved by their presence, their efforts, or their status, they may turn hostile in ways you never anticipated. They won't attack you head-on. They'll work in silence, in shadows, hoping to provoke a fall from your composure. That's why even the most composed must remain aware of the dangers that quiet resentment breeds. And nowhere is this more important than in personal bonds. Nonchalance in war is powerful, in business, strategic, in public, commanding. But in intimacy, it can become a slow erosion of trust. If you carry the same emotional stillness into your closest relationships, you risk becoming unknowable, even to those who need to understand you most. Vulnerability, when earned, is not weakness. It's proof that you are still human beneath the armor. Even the strongest king must, at times, take off the crown. Not for the crowd, but for the one who guards the gate beside him. Power is not emotional detachment. Power is knowing when to detach and when to reveal. The danger lies in believing the mask is your face. If you wear it too long, if you begin to believe your own performance, you lose more than connection. You lose your own compass, because the armor that once protected you becomes a cage, and the silence that once commanded rooms begins to silence you. Machiavelli would remind you, power demands adaptability. If you are fire in battle, be water in peace. If you are steel in confrontation, be breath in counsel. The most dangerous men are not the ones who are always composed. They are the ones who know exactly when to be. Because when your nonchalance is real, when it's deliberate, practiced, and chosen, then it is never a weakness. It is always a weapon. But to keep it sharp, you must return to the root, the purpose. Nonchalance was never about appearances. It was never about seeming superior. It was about refusing to let the world hijack your emotions. It was about disciplining your reactions until they serve you, not sabotage you. And that discipline must be refreshed daily. You don't become nonchalant once. You earn it every time you face chaos and refuse to break. Each day you are tested, a provocation, a delay, a disrespect, an opportunity to lash out, explain, perform. But you don't. You remember who you are. You remember what you represent, not just to the world, but to yourself. Because the final evolution of nonchalance is internal. You are no longer using it to influence others. You are using it to lead yourself. When you can walk through pressure without blinking, when you can hear the insult and feel nothing, when you can see the storm and never move from your center, that's when you've arrived. Not at arrogance, not at apathy, but at sovereignty. You are no longer reactive. You are responsive by choice. You are no longer provoked. You are present by command. You are no longer seeking control. You are control. Every step, every word, every pause, measured, weighted, intentional. You no longer live inside their rhythm. They live inside yours. And when they ask, why does he never rush? Why doesn't he react? Why is he so calm? The answer is simple. Because you're already 10 moves ahead. And the man 10 moves ahead doesn't speak to prove it. He speaks only when the game is already won.